All right, Rick, let's start with the Chicago Bears. I mean, you talk about a team that has gone from outhouse to penthouse. It feels like this team has done that in the span of about 3 weeks, and we have
On
really
paper,
no idea who they're
on
going to be
yep, on paper, it
on
looks
paper.
great. Yep.
So it's not hard to be excited about Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze. Kieran Amegadjie was an interesting pick because he's developmental left tackle. Suffered an injury last year, didn't play a lot for Yale. They got a punter, Torrey Taylor. They only had 4 picks in this draft. And they got a punter, which prompted Caleb Williams to text him and say, "We're not going to need you a lot next season." And then they came back into the draft to get Austin Booker, the edge rusher out of Kansas, who we had a chance to speak with at the combine, who at 6'6", 245, I think is a little lighter than we thought. Didn't test quite as well as we were hoping for, and he's probably developmental, right?
Yeah, I think this will be a developmental guy. I still think they need to get some edge help, uh, and I think they'll look for that as they go through this process in the off season. But they were aggressive putting together. I don't know, and Ryan, you can disagree with me or not, and I
No way.
don't care if you do or you don't. But this is a really nice opportunity for Caleb Williams to walk in and to have the talent on offense, which we're saying the Chicago Bears offensive talent around him.
I do not disagree at all. We've talked about this before. Best case scenario for any quarterback that I can remember, especially first overall pick. Maybe Patrick Mahomes had it walked into a better situation.
No, he didn't have to play.
That's right. Okay, if they had to play, then right, that's different. I don't know who else would even be in the conversation. When Peyton Manning started, they won 3 games and he threw 500 interceptions because that team was terrible.
Right.
Maybe Andrew Luck, but that team sucked though. That's why they got him. So he actually did a lot to help that team. They weren't
Right.
nearly as well prepared as this Bears team feels like.
No, and I think they're set up for success if, like I said, on paper, they look like they're going to be a 10-win seat for me. And I think they'll be potential wild card. I don't know if they're going to top the Detroit Lions or not. But with the way they played defense last year, once Matt Eberflus took over the defensive play calling, that in the new offense, it'll be interesting to see if this offense is built around Caleb Williams' skill set and how they implement all these weapons to fit around Caleb Williams.
They got DeAndre Swift in the offseason to help with the run game. Khalil Herbert's still there. Roshan Johnson, last year's 4th-round pick, I believe, is also still there. I'll just point to this. And we had a lot of conversations throughout the draft process about Caleb Williams, his dad. Are they going to be a problem collectively for whichever team drafts him? We talked to Caleb at the combine, and I joke about this all the time. I don't know if you know this story, Harry, but Caleb's a big ginger ale guy. So Debo got Rick and
ginger ale.
Oh, what is it? Ginger beer. Sorry. Rick's also a ginger beer snob. That's why he had to interject there. So Rick and Caleb shared a ginger beer, and Rick would never pick up his empty can. He would just leave it there. Caleb, at the end of the interview, Harry said, he grabbed his can, which was on the ground. He said, "Where can I put this? I don't want to leave this here." And Rick said, "Just throw it on the ground. Don't worry about it. Debo will get it." Rick didn't say that. But I think that just is an indication that, okay, maybe he understands that he's a human living in a world with other humans and he can act like a normal person. And I mentioned that, Rick, because Shane Waldron was asked about Caleb after their first few practices, and he called him an unbelievable human being. You might say, well, he has to say that. Well, he doesn't have to say anything. He could just say he's doing fine on the football field. And he said football is part of what makes him special, but there's a lot more outside of that which makes him special as well. And it feels like when you read comments from his teammates, both young and old, they seem to buy into the fact that he's the leader and he can handle it and all those other things you might worry about when you bring in a young player.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the whatever hoopla to create media headlines about a player. But these guys spend so much time with these kids, especially if he's going to be the #1 overall pick, that you should have a pretty good feel for who the kid is as a personality. And, they made a decision. This is our franchise changing quarterback, the face of the organization. Is this the guy we want? And there was no hesitation. I don't believe in them taking him #1 overall this year.
No, I mean, if I said, I'm just guessing here, if they knew by the combine that Caleb was their guy, that wouldn't be a surprise. That's not too early, right?
No, they knew they knew it during the season.
Well, wait. Pete said he wasn't very good.
Yeah. Pete's, yeah. Let's move on. It's not the Pete show.
Move on. Also worth noting, Thomas Brown, who was the OC in Carolina, is now the passing game coordinator in Chicago. He said about Rome Odunze, the number 9 overall pick, the wide receiver to Washington, who we love talking to as well at the combine. He said he was his second favorite interview of the combine after Caleb Williams. Also worth noting, Chris Beatty is the wide receivers coach there. He was the wide receivers coach with the Chargers regime with Brandon Staley there. So he's seen Mike Williams. He's seen Keenan Allen, who is now in Chicago. He's worked with DJ Moore, and he's going to be working with Rome Odunze, and I think that's going to be good for both Rome and Caleb as well. So just something to keep an eye on as you talk about this Bears team. You gave an A. Was this your favorite draft class, Rick, or one of your favorites?
One of my favorites.
I gave an A+. They were my number 1 draft class, somehow surpassing the Steelers. So I have to recreate those. But it's hard to be too upset. I mean, maybe the Kieran Amegadjie thing is a developmental pick, which I understand because their offensive line is pretty young and pretty good. But are you okay with this? Number 1 and number 2, would you have rather had an edge rusher at number 9?
Yeah, I think if there was an edge rusher available, I may have looked at that. But I think everybody's looking at this kid's upside. Remember, Yale only played 4 games, had the quad injury. I don't know if it was surgically repaired or not. Couldn't compete down at the Senior Bowl. Couldn't do anything through the pre-draft process. I don't think he's practicing yet. I think they're trying to get him ready for training camp. So, but this kid, physically, he has everything you're looking for. Just how long is it going to take him to connect all the dots?
All right, I'll ask you this quickly, and then we'll move on. So, as I mentioned, Kieran Amegadjie went the 11th pick in the 3rd round. The very next pick, would you rather, Rick, Kieran Amegadjie, or would you rather had edge rusher out of Utah, Jonah Ellis, who went to the Broncos?
Yeah, I don't know. I like Jonah Ellis as a situational pass rusher. I don't think he's an every down player.
Yeah.
I think Chicago was trying to solidify that offensive line, especially with Caleb Williams. So I think that, but you're talking about a kid that played at a lower level that only played 4 games. So you're really betting on your research and betting on the kid, betting on your offensive line coach that you can develop this kid.